Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your weekly instalment of the Gersnet Podcast, hosted by myself, Craig Ray. This is the Independent Rangers podcast made for fans, by fans, and all content is free. You can catch us over on the website at www.gersnet.co.uk, where you can have a wee look at the forum, some articles, and over on our Twitter as well at Gersnet Online. But of course, here tonight on the 24th of February to discuss Rangers' famous 4-2 victory over Gretna on this day in 2008. No, don't worry, we're not going to do that. He's nervous yet, guys. Obviously here to discuss the big one on Sunday with my very special guest, Dougie Kinnear. Dougie, how you doing, buddy?
I'm not bad. I've got a wee bit of a fever brewing though, Craig.
Oh no, is it one of those kinds of fever?
It's the battle fever.
There we go. Only been on for a minute. We've had it already. That's 5 points to the battle fever bingo squad tonight. No, guys, obviously, big one coming up in a couple of days, and we will be here to preview it all. It was really good of Alec the other day to do his little preview to the preview, which was nice. He went through the press conferences pretty much from the last week, and that's what we're going to do partly as well here tonight. But just before we start, need to give a little message from our sponsors, and that is Forest Precision Engineering. They're a subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company, and they've been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for many years, and we're delighted that they're backing our pod. You can get them over at forestprecisioneng.com. You can also visit the Forest Precision Executive Lounge, which is a stunning new hospitality area within the historic main stand at Ibrox. For more information on how to book this unique and intimate space, you can email the club via hospitality@rangers.co.uk. So as we say, joined here by Dougie tonight. I think before we start, obviously, 24th of February, apart from a famous victory over Gretna 15 years ago today, we drew 2 each with Borussia Dortmund a year ago today, but more importantly, it would have been the late great Sir Walter Smith's 75th birthday today. You kind of run out of words to describe what Walter Smith meant to, and still means and will forever mean to Rangers and their supporters. And I was actually going to start off today, Dougie, with, just early sort of favourite League Cup memories, but could maybe even tie in the two. What would you say your earliest and favourite League Cup Walter memories are?
Do you know what? That was my answer. My answer was going to be 2 back-to-back League Cup final victories. The first one being in the season 2008, 2009, then 2009, 2010. The first one being the famous 9 men and Pigeon Gate against St Mirren. That was actually my first ever League Cup final, believe it or not. And I can't remember too much of it at the game because 2 things. One, I was sitting in row A of Hampden, which anyone that's ever sat at Hampden...
Not even row A, just A.
Oh, mate, Hampden's the worst stadium ever. And I was in the front row, so I had a terrible view of the game. But 2, I was absolutely scooped. So I don't remember too much about it for that reason as well. But looking back on it, and you kind of look back a bit differently when you get older and a bit wiser, hopefully. But it's amazing when you watch that back. When we go down to the 9 men in particular, Walter Smith literally orchestrated that team to a trophy, like an orchestra. It was just an incredible victory against all odds, and one that lives long in my memory. And then the following year, almost tops it with the post gate, the great through ball from Vladimir Weiss, and then Nikica Jelavic obviously slides and knocks it past Fraser Forster, and it hits the post, and it looks like it's coming out, but it somehow manages to find its way back into the back of the net. Those were 2 back-to-back trophies, led by Sir Walter. Only right that we do mention the great man on what would have been his 75th birthday. Rangers are a winning team. We are a winning team. The League Cup is our trophy. We have won it 27 times against Celtic's 20. Walter led us to our last one, and I think it's about time we bring it home.
Well, we've had Pigeon Gate, we've had Postgate, I wonder if we're going to get a wee bit of Nick Walshgate on Sunday. Sorry, Neil Lennon, I didn't want to bring that up just in case he's listening after his comments earlier. But no, I was going to say the 2011 final. The first one that I went to, I was the 7 or 8 or something like that. It was the David Cooper final, they called it, the game against Motherwell that we won 5-1. And I always remember that match ticket because it had like David Cooper's face like on it. I thought it was really cool. It's probably like the coolest match ticket you'll ever see in your life, and it'll be my mum's house somewhere. I don't know where it is. It'll be packed away in some box there. But that game, but in terms of Walter, that 1-0 game, I would have been about 12 or 13 at the time, and I never went to it. I would have been watching it in my room myself, and I just remember being apoplectic and raging because Rangers were absolutely diabolical that day. You think we're playing St Mirren, it should be 4-5-0, and then Kevin Thompson does what Kevin Thompson does and gets himself sent off. And then Danny Wilson just decides to do it as well. But you're right, just the way he orchestrated that like a conductor, it was incredible, and it really, I think his second spell as manager really showed the type of manager that Walter Smith was when he was really under the cosh, under pressure. We really got to see what he was made of, and yeah, he's sadly missed by everyone, every member of the Rangers family. So happy birthday, Sir Walter, wherever you are. Before we go on to the game, just wanted to do a wee quick mention. Obviously, we had the Hall of Fame on Sunday. I don't think the guys got to cover it on Sunday because it would have been happening as the pod was going out live to the people. Obviously, we had 3 inductions: Alan McGregor, Stephen Davis and James Tavernier. I think for the first 2, there's no debate for anyone, McGregor and Davis. A wee bit of sort of controversy around Tavernier's appointment, so to speak, into the Hall of Fame. I fully support all 3 being in it, but Dougie, what was your take on the inductions?
Yeah, I think all 3 deserve their induction into the Hall of Fame. I think there's multi-facets to it in terms of whether the right players, was there any other worthy, notable people, ex-Rangers men. I say men because I'm going to allude to more than just players, but was there any ex-Rangers men that should have also been inducted in at that time? I think before we're going to go in and talk about McGregor and Davis and Tavernier, I think a lot of Rangers fans think this was the opportunity to induct two really strong Rangers men that lost their lives last year, and that is Walter Smith and Jimmy Bell.
Yeah. And
whilst I'm never against an addendum to a condition, one of the conditions of the Hall of Fame is its players. So I don't think the Hall of Fame is necessarily the way to honour these 2 Rangers men. I think there's other ways to do that. And I fully expect the club to do something in the future, especially with stands inside Ibrox named after Bill Struth and Sandy Jardine. There's the opportunity to name a stand after Walter Smith. The new Edmiston House, I think, is the reason why we probably wanted to do the Hall of Fame now as an opening gala, and probably brought forward the plans to induct the 3 players, because personally I was a bit against inducting them whilst they're still playing at Rangers. I think a timing thing would have been my issue, but I understand why we would have wanted to do it for the opening gala. So I've got nothing against it from that perspective. But talking of Edmiston House, I think there's an opportunity to do something in or around Edmiston House to honour Walter Smith in particular, whether that be naming Edmiston House after him, or whether that be at some point forging a statue outside. For example, I think there's opportunities to do something for Walter, which I think would be fitting and more fitting than the Hall of Fame, and stick to the players. But obviously, when the Hall of Fame was being announced, there was a lot of great tweets from supporters, and I've got a couple of stats on all 3 players. And I've actually got your tweet in front of me as well.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to come on to that as well. But going through the players, so Alan McGregor has 16 years service at Rangers. Obviously, he is, I was going to say academy graduate, but it wasn't necessarily an academy at that point, but he came through the ranks of Rangers. He's made 464 appearances. He's won 13 trophies in that time, including 4 Scottish Premiership titles, 4 Scottish Cups, 5 League Cups, and he's won the Europa League runner-up. Says Europa League runner-up. He's also got the UEFA Cup runner-up, albeit he wasn't playing that day. But he is the Rangers record appearance holder in Europe. You then get Stephen Davis, slightly less tenure, obviously. He's got 8 years service, 346 appearances, 28 goals. Again, another player that's won a lot of trophies. He's won 10 trophies. It's 4 Scottish Premierships, 3 Scottish Cups, 2 League Cups, and he's got the 2 runners-up in Europa League and UEFA Cup. So he's also Rangers' most capped player ever, as he's a UK record holder for most caps for Northern Ireland. I think what separates these 2 players for me against James Tavernier is that trophy haul, 13 and 10. What surprised me, though, looking at the stats, is Stephen Davis made 346 appearances for the club. James Tavernier, with the same length of service, actually has 387 appearances for the club. He's only won 2 major trophies, obviously the Scottish Premiership and the Scottish Cup. He also has a massive opportunity this weekend to complete the haul in Scottish top flight. That's the difference. That's the difference right there. It's the trophy haul. It's the fact that he's younger. But for me, there's a lot of context around James Tavernier. In front of me there, straight away, he's got 4 trophies. He's got the Scottish Championship and he's got the Challenge Cup as well, which the Challenge Cup in particular, I was at that Peterhead game when he scored the volley.
Oh, that was a belter.
What a volley it was. I'm right behind the goal as well, and I've got a great view of it.
I hope you weren't Roy for that one.
I was not actually had a great view for that one, and I'm hoping I've got a decent view on Sunday. I'm in I chose the South Stand upper for the first time.
You'll have a reasonable view. I'm tramping out in the West Stand with the rest of the down and outs because I'm not paying an extra £5 for a ticket. So
I sat in the West Stand for the semi-final in the Scottish Cup last year, right next to the Union Bears, and the atmosphere was brilliant. So let's hope for a similar result. But I'm going to go into your tweet, right, because here's your tweet about James Tavernier, right? So he did lead the club to our most significant league title in its recent history, arguably its history, stopping the 10. He led the cup to its first Scottish Cup in 13 years. He led the cup to only its 5th European final. He led the club back to the Champions League against all odds at that point. He does have the opportunity to complete the 3 trophies in Scottish top flight. Looking at last year as well, he was the Europa League top goal scorer, the Golden Boot winner. He was in the team of the year for the Europa League. For me, all those things considered, I understand a bit of the debate around James Tavernier because of the trophy haul, but see, when you break it down, that is worthy of a Hall of Famer, and I don't think it's going to be until James Tavernier leaves that you suddenly realise how difficult it's going to be to replace him as a player. And his 387 appearances is right back. He has 95 goals. I think I've seen something. He's actually Rangers' 7th all-time top goal scorer. Something ridiculous like that recently. I don't have that one in front of me, but it's something absolutely ridiculous. Like, he's actually in our top 10 top goal scorers as a right back. He finished the Europa League top goal scorer last season. I think a lot of people need to put some respect on James Tavernier's name. I get he's not had the best seasons this year, but they're definitely worthy. Overall, they're worthy of his induction, and I'm hoping that he stays at Rangers for a good few years. What age is Tav? Is he 30?
I think he's 30, yeah.
He's got a good few years at Rangers, and in those years, I hope he brings home more trophies starting this weekend.
Yeah, that would certainly be ideal. I think with Tav, for me, he encapsulates and sums up kind of the last 10 years or so in Rangers history in the sense of the journey. Because what you've seen is a slow and gradual progression in James Tavernier, like you've seen with Rangers. And a lot of Rangers fans, I feel personally, and fair enough, they don't want to hear about what happened in 2012 and being put down to the lower leagues, and they don't want to hear about getting scurried off Celtic when we came back up, etc., etc. But
yeah,
that's part of the club's history. You need to, in a way, embrace how far we've came from those moments. And I think James Tavernier, that journey that he's been on from signing from Wigan for 200 50 grand or Newcastle. Yeah. But it might have been Wigan, I can't remember.
That was Wigan, yeah. Him and Waghorn in the same
Waghorn. And even just, building and growing, taking on the captaincy. I mean, I was at the press conferences at Auchenhow on Wednesday, which we'll come on there a wee bit. I didn't get to ask him this, but I was going to ask him about if we get a penalty on Sunday, whether that's a shootout or in open play, if he would step up and take it after what happened at the last League Cup final. Now, I assume he would say yes. If we get a penalty on Sunday, Tav stepping up to take it, we know he is, but he didn't do it the last time after he missed one or two in the run-up to it. I think last weekend against Livingston, even if he does miss that penalty, I still think he steps up on Sunday to take it. The guy showed some severe mettle and kahunas in Seville to go and take that first penalty. He knew, what would happen if he missed it, and he went up, he dispatched it well. He done what Barry Ferguson couldn't do in a penalty shout in a big European game in Fiorentina, where he went up and took the first penalty and missed. So I think his growth even from then, because obviously he was a captain, and that was a decent Rangers team that lost that last League Cup final. But just the growth in him as a person, I think, since the season we won the league. And now that, as you've said earlier, Dougie, this is a winning Rangers team. I mean, I know obviously people will maybe have a wee dig and a laugh, you've only won this and that, blah, blah, blah. But, we've taken trophies the last 2 seasons. We hadn't done that for like 10 years. So it's small steps, it's progression. We're getting back to where Rangers need to be regularly winning trophies.
Yeah, that Scottish Cup victory in particular last season was huge for us. It got us back to winning that trophy. It's a trophy that would trail Celtic in the trophy hall. We had to get back to winning trophies, and it was back-to-back trophies after the league title in the year before. For me, it's important that we win this trophy on Sunday for a number of reasons. One is to get our first, is it 13 years since we've won it? So it's to get our first League Cup trophy in that timescale. But there's also league consequences of this as well. I think Celtic at the moment feel a little bit invincible. They're sitting 9 points top of the table. I think we need to win this trophy to prove to ourselves, first and foremost, that we are a good team, we are a winning team, but also put a bit of doubt into their heads. And I don't want to talk too much about Celtic, but they've got a tough run of fixtures coming up after this final. I think they've got St Mirren, Hibs, Hearts. If we can get a win, hopefully a comprehensive win, then it might put a bit of doubt into their head, and we can hopefully claw some points back in the league. Because for me, there's still 3 trophies on this table to win this year, and I know we've kind of joked about it in the WhatsApp that there's 2 main ones that we should be going for, and that's the 2 cups. For me, that's a given. We should be looking to win this cup at the weekend, but I'm not writing anything off this season, and Neil McCann was obviously making similar noises, but let's just do our talking on the pitch.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, like, you're right, there are technically still 3 trophies up for grabs. I mean, put it this way, I mean, I think most Rangers fans, well, maybe not concede the league, but we realise how difficult it's going to be. But can you imagine if, we thought the players felt that, and the players just went out every league game thinking, oh, well, the league's done? Be absolutely raging with them. And rightly so. We need to go out and do our job, and since Michael Beale's came in, 14 games, we've done that. We've went out, we've done our job, apart from 1 game. But that's 1 game out of 14 and you're drawing it. It's not the worst record to have in the world.
And we should have won it. We should have won it, and I think that'll be in the players' heads. The fact that we should have won that game. We beat them in the route to get into the Scottish Cup final last season. These things will be playing in heads. And it's funny when you're talking about Tav and hitting penalties. The last, obviously, League Cup final that we were in was against Celtic, and Alfredo Morelos stepped up. He hit the penalty, he missed the penalty. It's amazing considering all the media narrative, as always, that's coming out just now around referee pressure. That game was won by a poor officiating decision. It was offside, but we lick our wounds and we move on. We move on to this one, and let's hope it's a different outcome than the last time we went to Hampden in a League Cup final against Celtic.
Yeah, well, I'd certainly take an offside goal and something for VAR to conveniently break at the same time.
I'd go full Kevin Keegan right now on you, Craig, and I'd say I would love it.
Well, all I'm saying is, well, we're not trying to grass our good friend in, but Gary Valentine on the podcast was at Hampden today, and he was in and around the VAR machine. So
with a Celtic supporting father-in-law, I tell you, honestly, you just can't pick family members.
I know. Gary was saying that his father-in-law was inspecting the VAR machine to make sure it wasn't going to make any biased decisions in Rangers' favour.
I see that. Do you know what I just seen there? That we were talking about also the three Hall of Fame inductees. They've made over 1,200 competitive appearances amongst the three of them, and there is a stat here, and I'm trying to kind of fact check it there in terms of the value of the players. Obviously, you mentioned James Tavernier cost us around 250,000. I can't remember what we paid for Davis. I think it was about
3. Yeah.
So the stat here, yeah, it was film, wasn't it? So the stat here says that those three players cost us a combined fee of under 3.5 million. And obviously, we've spoken about their trophies and we've spoken about their appearances. That's what you call good business.
Oh yeah. Just imagine if Ross Wilson picked up all three of them for those prices. He'd be absolutely. He'd be using that like in his appraisals for the next 10 years and his 1-to-1 meetings at work. Look at the value that I've got out of somebody.
I'm hoping that Ross Wilson signed 2 good players in the January transfer window that will go on to contribute towards many trophies for this football club.
Yeah, I certainly think that will happen in the long run anyway. We're asking in Cantwell. But moving on closer to the game, I'm not quite there yet, but just wanted to talk about obviously the sort of build up to the game and the press this week. It has been quite quiet, considering as well there hasn't been any midweek fixtures. The way that we've been used to it recently is, there's a game on a Monday, there's a game on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and then you've got the Old Firm in the weekend. There's been no games midweek for either side. It's been a free midweek. So you would expect that there's going to be a huge big build-up, and it has been a wee bit quite tame and boring. And I think that's why you've seen the last sort of week or so, your usual suspects of pundits in inverted commas and tabloids and newspapers and radio stations just trying to come up with faux headlines and faux controversy to make, because this might sound controversial, but I don't actually think that Michael Beale and Ange Postecoglou hate each other that much. I don't think they're best pals, but I don't think they've got a massive disdain for each other as well. The way that some of the headlines have been written this week, and I mean, I know you're always going to get it with these games and what have you, but some of it is, it's laughable. The whole stuff a few weeks ago with Michael Beale calling Ange Postecoglou lucky. I mean, that wasn't really a dig at him. It was just something that Michael Beale was saying in conversation. And to be honest, Michael Beale had a point. Celtic fans will turn around and say, well, how's Ange Postecoglou lucky that Celtic have a player trading model that means that they can spend lots of money? Well, it wasn't Ange Postecoglou that came up with that player trading model. He is lucky to be in that job, but stuff like that, like it's stupid. And obviously we've seen comments last week for Chris Sutton, just really, as I said at the time with Sutton's comments, they really, really got to me and riled me up, because take banter and a wee bit of criticism and all that, but Chris Sutton was calling Michael Beale's integrity into question there, and I know, look, people can have their opinion. Would they have done that if it was a bigger game? And we're talking about giving Partick Thistle a goal after the Tillman incident a couple of weeks ago. But if Michael Beale's came out and said that, you need to take Michael Beale at his word. What's Michael like? What proof do you have that Michael Beale is lying about that? Nobody does. Michael Beale is an honest guy. He's an open guy. He's a really nice guy. He's a chatty guy. He's an honest, friendly guy. He's just a normal guy that loves his football. And I know that, a lot of people seem to get riled up by that. And a couple of Rangers fans do as well, in fairness, thinking that he maybe talks too much during press conferences. But, he's just a normal guy that's quite honest going about his business. He doesn't obviously feel the need to put on a show, which we've seen managers in the past do. We've seen Pedro Caixinha do it, try to put on theatre, and it didn't work. We've seen Gerrard at times do it as well. And ironically, I think when Gerrard tried to put on the act, that was more than likely when we're having bad results. I think Michael Beale's just a normal guy that loves his football, and I think a lot of the comments are taken completely out of context to try and spice up some sort of rivalry between the managers. To be honest, I don't really think so, Dougie.
I don't think the rivalry between the managers is necessarily there. That's just the mainstream media doing what they do. You know, they're looking for their hits, their clicks online. And to be perfectly honest, I couldn't care what the mainstream media go and say. Viaplay are doing similar as well, with a kind of joint press conference photos, but it ended out separate press conferences. That's just Viaplay trying to drum up interest in this game as if it needed any more interest. And I think they're probably just doing it outside of Scotland to get a bit more intrigue. And it kind of had a whole boxing feel to me of the two kind of heavyweights standing there and just kind of a bit circus act. The Old Firm doesn't need that for me. I couldn't care less what the media say about this game. We know what it means. There's a lot of noise just now, though, and it is because it's been a fairly quiet week. And what's the still game phrase? Quiet. I like quiet.
Quiet.
I'm missing our midweek Thursday night European football, though. Having to make do with watching the English teams this week. Managed to catch the Liverpool game, which was a good one, the Man City game, and then I missed the Man United game last night. I wish we were watching Rangers, but what that does allow us to do is focus all our attention on this game, and I'm hoping that this week has allowed us to build up fitness in certain players that obviously have had fitness issues, but allows us to focus our tactics entirely on this game. And I tell you what, there's guys like Fashion Sakala that have also made a few comments this week about, you know, the other mob, and Barry Ferguson making comments about showing a lack of respect. He also had a bit of confidence getting into that press conference. There's a bit of kind of controversy whether he should or he should not have said them. My personal view on it is I want my players to be confident, and I do not want them to be respecting Celtic. I want them to go in with that mindset. But they need to back it up in the pitch. And I see Frankie's put a poll out there. I think that's exactly what I want to see. I want to see winning mindsets. I want to see Fashion Sakala going out there and now following that up on Sunday. It would be great to see. Do you know what? I personally think Fashion Sakala is huge for us on Sunday. I think he's a type of player that will cause them all sorts of problems. Loving his mindset in terms of go in there, show them no respect, go in with confidence, and let's bring that trophy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, worst case scenario, you get wound up a wee bit. I mean, well, obviously after getting beat, but I mean, if that's the consequence, you get wound up a wee bit, then really who cares? Just go in fully confident and just go hell for leather. I mean, the thing about the Sakala comments as well, one thing that I noticed, and I was in his press conference on Wednesday as well, and I had to look back when he said, you know, like, we're better than Celtic. And I was like, did he say that? Because I didn't think he did. And then I went and watched it back. He didn't say that in the press conference.
Did he not? No.
He didn't. What I think's happened there is you had the newspapers that were given time with the players separately as well. And I think you would, I mean, I don't know who it would have been, obviously, because I wasn't there, but I think you might have had a couple of wee guys for the daily newspapers probably try and push faster into making a comment like that, probably saying like, well, do you think they're better than Celtic, blah, 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 just trying
to... How else is he going to answer that question?
Exactly, we don't think we're better than them.
Exactly, and I love that mindset. We should be going with that mindset that we are better. Let's look back at Michael Beale's comments. Michael Beale said... there are two very good teams getting into this final on Sunday, both on great form, and I think that needs to be called out. This is set up to be an absolute nothing each.
Don't know if I could take that.
No, it's set up to be an absolute cracker, isn't it? You get two good teams. When you look at the league table, Celtic are sitting 9 points clear, so it's naive of us to sit here and say we are the best team, but we should be sitting there confident. You know, in my personal opinion, Celtic and under Ange have had an opportunity to build a strong Celtic team. This is a strong Celtic team. They're a good team. But I think this is the best they're going to be. I think they've now got their ceiling. I think they're now starting to have that player trading model where some of the better players are having to move on, such as Juranovic, who also scored last night for Union Berlin against Ajax. We're building something right now, and I'm actually very excited about what we are building. And I think my excitement comes from twofold. One, our January signings. I genuinely believe that Todd Cantwell and Nico Rask can bring us up another level. And I think they're going to be important players at some point on Sunday. But the second one is Michael Beale. Michael Beale has managed to turn what was a fairly shambolic season. I know we got into the Champions League and that was a huge success for us this season from a financial perspective.
Yeah, that was it. But
that was it. In the Champions League, we were not good enough. In the league, we've dropped far too many stupid points. Michael Beale's record, what did you say? 12 wins out of 13 with that one draw?
13 out of 14.
That's a brilliant record considering the team that he inherited. And where I get my excitement from is that team looked done under Gio. But Michael Beale came in and he said himself that this team is not as broken as what many people think it is. Mm-hmm. And I think with a couple of additions of Raskin and Cantwell, we are now seeing a very good Rangers team. And I always go in and I think the players should go into Sunday thinking this is a great test, it's a good opportunity. I genuinely believe that our starting 11 is better than theirs. I genuinely believe that. And I hope we believe it as a team. And I hope we go out and prove that on Sunday. But it's a great test to go and see where we are and where we do need to strengthen going forward. But it's set up to be a cracker. And, the Old Firm banter started on Monday when the school drop-off, when I was taking my eldest daughter to school. All the Celtic fans giving me jip about they'll wave me off in the 60th minute when they're beating us. I love the Old Firm banter. There's nothing like it. And that's what Michael Beale was saying in his press conference as well. He's seen derbies all around the world. The disrespect on social media from supporters south of the border is unreal when they take their half and half scarves and their cameras to just photograph that they were at the event with a cardboard cutout saying that they want a shirt. This is a proper football match. It's a proper derby, and this one on Sunday's going to be a cracker. Yeah,
I think it will be a cracker, Dougie. That is amazing, but into how, Celtic fans spend years not calling it the Old Firm, then as soon as an English fan on Twitter says, okay, it's not really the biggest derby in the world, they're like, oh my God, no, it is, it's totally the biggest derby in the world. You're like, well, I don't know.
They all want tickets to go.
Well, if you've seen the prices on certain third-party websites that we cannot advertise for legal reasons on the podcast, then, yeah, they're going for a bomb, put it that way. But on to the actual game itself, after dealing with the press issue. First and foremost, the injuries, obviously, we need to talk about them. Jack, Lundstrom, Roof and Tillman are all doubts. Now, the last sort of updates we would have got was Michael Beale's press conference on Tuesday. As I say, I was at the player ones on Wednesday. I did try and climb over the fence at Auchenhowie to get a look at training. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do it. I don't know what's happening with the injured players. No one does except the players in the management team. I was told on Wednesday, you can, come to your own conclusions on this, that Tillman apparently hasn't trained pretty much since the Thistle game on grass anyway. So obviously that might have changed Wednesday, Thursday, today. But going by that, you would probably say if anyone is going to miss it, it would probably be him. And I do think if we are missing Tillman, I think he's the one that the form that he's been shown so far that we absolutely need in there, Dougie.
Yeah, I think on the Tillman one, I said at the time coming back from the game against Partick Thistle, some of the challenges were over aggressive. The one that obviously created the controversy where it went out for the throw-in and then he went on to score. That's a stamp. It was an outright stamp on him. And we've seen so many incidents over the years where tackles like that go unpunished. There's a very little reaction from within the Rangers camp post-match and the press conferences and the like, and it goes on to injure a player. So hopefully he is back and he is fit, because in my opinion, Malik Tillman is at least the best young player in Scottish football this season. There's an argument that he is Rangers Player of the Year, and if we do go on and do something in the league, there's an argument he's been the best player of the year as well. I think Malik Tillman is a special player. All four of the players that you mentioned, though, play a very important role for this club and for this side, and it would be great to have them all available while they start or whether they're on the bench. It gives us those options. Only time will tell. With Tillman, if he is fit, though, he's an automatic starter. Jack Lindstrom will come on to team predictions shortly, but it'll be, for me, it's a toss-up between which one of them does start. I don't think both of them will start. Kemar Roof, on the other hand, I think Kemar Roof, this period just epitomises Kemar Roof, doesn't it? You know, he came off the bench against Livy, he looked brilliant, he got his goal, he won the free kick that
came over to me and celebrated in the corner as well, by the way.
Right in front of you, that's it.
I was happy clapping him.
But you know, I see a stat. I've got another couple of stats. You know, I love my stats, right? So here's 2/3 for you, right? So Kemar Roof has played in 47% of competitive matches since he joined Rangers, but only 28% of the minutes. So first on that one, that's just not good enough. There's arguments that we've got far too many players that are injury prone, that don't play enough football. And it's interesting because I was literally flicking through Twitter before coming on the pod, and I seen more footage of Craig Gordon in training. He had a double leg break, and he's going to be back playing football for Hearts before some of our guys like Hollander and Suter, which is just absolutely mental. But Kemar Roof for me is just one of a number of players who, if he was fit, he would be a tremendous footballer. But unfortunately, he is not fit. And whilst we always have the same argument about what if, for me, he's a player that's on far too much money. And when the summer comes, if somebody's interested, I'd look to move him on. But on the flip side, and the good side of it, is Kemar Roof's record is in 43 SPFL appearances, he's scored 21 goals, which means he averages a goal every 104 minutes. So you've got that flip side of it. He's so effective, but he's just not reliable, unfortunately. And it'd be good to have him as an option off the bench, but if he's not there, we have lots of options at the moment. This is, considering the state of the squad when Michael Beale took over, I think it's going to be a strong squad. Hopefully the players that we've just mentioned do make it. But I think that bench is going to look very strong. And what that means is when Celtic inevitably make their subs on the 60-minute mark because they've kind of emptied the tank beforehand, we can hopefully replicate that. We can hopefully go out. We need to stop them in the first half. They always come out fast. Hopefully we can come out fast. We can empty the tank as well. And knowing the players that we've just spoken about there, knowing that some of them won't start, what that means is that we can go and look to the subs bench around the 60 mark as well and bring off that kind of quality. And I think that's what will win us the game. I think it's been able to make those changes and bring on that quality.
Yeah, I mean, the point you make there about the subs is quite interesting because I was having a wee think about this earlier. Obviously, Celtic have made a living this season, getting the game done in the first half, early stages of the second half, can rotate it on the 60th minute and sort of continue. And even if they're playing badly, they can still rotate it in the 60th minute and eventually the teams that they're playing against will crumble after that. But they've not really been up against a team that's managed to make the same kind of changes back to them. Now, even if you go back to our game in January against them, we absolutely dominated most of that game. But when you think about it, look at the guys that they're bringing on. Sands, right? There's no way, certainly James Sands, unless we really are needing to see out the game, won't play a part on Sunday, you wouldn't think. Scott Wright, you never know, he could come on at some point, maybe if the game goes to extra time or whatever. But we'll be looking at Arfield, Hadji, Roof, possibly Cantwell or Tillman to come on. Proper quality players that can make a difference in the game. And, if we're a goal up or needing an equaliser, can get that sort of vital goal. One thing that I'm interested in as the Celtic team, because I've spoke to a couple of Celtic supporting acquaintances this week who are kind of, they don't know where to pick between Aaron Moyer or Matt O'Reilly in the midfield. I think if Kyogo will be fit, he'll start the game. the thing with Kyogo is, can you see him lasting the 90 minutes? Probably not. I've got a feeling this could go all the way. He certainly won't last 120 minutes. Aaron Moy as well. I think he is a quality player, but can you see him lasting 90 minutes, never mind 120? No. I do have a feeling that Postecoglou will go out with his best 11 on Sunday and just go for it. And when I say best 11, I mean Moy over O'Reilly. I think O'Reilly's been good, but I think Moy's better. And I think he'll just say, just go for it. The caveat to that is, however, if we can handle that, eventually your Moyes and your Kyogos will get tired. And if you look at who they're bringing on to replace him, yeah, it's still quality. But for example, if it's Giakoumakis that's coming on for Kyogo, you're a wee bit worried. But obviously he's not there. They've got this new striker and we don't know much about him. I'm not saying he's good, I'm not saying he's bad, but I don't think he's as good as Giakoumakis. And then even if O'Reilly's coming on, I think he's still a quality player, but he's not at Moyes' level. So I think that'll be quite interesting. The midfield is ultimately where these games are going to be won or lost. I've been kind of rankling with it the last wee while, and I've completely done a 180 on my team for Sunday in the midfield. I would go with Raskin and Kamara. I wanted a Xhaka Lundstram in there because obviously you want the dig, you want the battle in these games, but both of those players, more so Lundstram, are prone to a wee mistake. I mean, if you think the amount of times that Lundstram's gave the ball away this season, it doesn't always lead to goals or whatever, but he's done it probably once a game on average. My fear is when you give the ball away to Celtic, they will punish you. The thing we're asking in Kamara is more so with Kamara, they're not giving the ball away. We know that Kamara is very, defensive with the ball. He likes to pass it sideways and backwards, but he's not going to give it away. And Raskin can kind of give you a wee bit more going forward. That's kind of just my thoughts on it. I think we should, because I'm quite worried about not what Celtic are going to do to us, but what we're going to do to us, because if you look at both games that we have played them this season, we've conceded 6 goals. There is an argument to be made that every single one of those goals were made by unforced errors from us. So that's what I'm worried about, us making those errors and Celtic capitalising on it. So, initially I was wanting a sort of midfield enforcer, a Xhaka Lundstram, but now I think Kamara playing the 6, Raskin playing the 8, and then whether it's Tillman or Cantwell, for me that obviously depends on who's fit. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I can see Frankie's predicted 11 on the screen right now as well. And what's funny is I think most Rangers fans, I can see a couple of comments just now with different players in mind, but I think most Rangers fans would agree with 10 of the 11. I think the back 5 picks itself in terms of McGregor, Tavernier, Goldson, Davies and Barisic. Yeah. I think the one thing about the defence is they need to be on their game. They need to be sharp, especially with the pace around Celtic up front. We need to make sure that we are sensible at the back, but we are winning those challenges and we're not doing anything stupid at the back. I think the front 3 for me picks itself. I know there's other players that are on form. It's great to have those options, but those are great options off the bench. I'd be starting Kent, Morelos and Sakala. And one of the comments on there right now is just about that clinical finishing of those 3 players. When you take out a Roof or a Cholak, you didn't even mention Cholak about the options off the bench. He is our top goal scorer this season.
There you go.
These are options that you have from the bench if you need the goal. For me, those 3 players give you a lot of energy. Morelos in particular, for me, sometimes was a bit underappreciated by our supporters because he isn't the penalty box goal scorer that Cholak is, and he's therefore not going to score you the same amount of goals. But our team needs Morelos. It needs him to be holding certainly that ball up. Game. I think he's hugely important. The thing for me about Morelos though is when earlier on I was talking about Sakala, it's great to have these players fired up and really going for it. Morelos for me, I think the opposite should be in his head right now. I think sometimes Morelos gets far too into his head that he wants to go into the battle, he wants to fight with them. And actually I think Morelos just needs to play his game. I think I think Morelos is the best striker in Scotland. We've mentioned Kyogo and the guy So from South Korea for Celtic. I think Alfredo Morelos is the best striker in Scotland, and whilst he's not the most clinical, I think he'll be really key to the way that we play football. So I think back five, front three, pick itself. If Tillman's fit, I think he starts. Undoubtedly, he's been my player of the year so far for Rangers. He is growing into the Rangers jersey. I spoke before with Stuart and Colin on the pod about he just oozes class, and if we can pick him up for 5 million from Bayern Munich, it's a bargain, and I think he's got a huge future in the game. I think Raskin starts. I know there's a few other supporters that are saying it's thrown him into this game. Who was the other player that they were comparing him to that we kind of played in an Old Firm game too soon and it kind of ruined him? I can't remember now. But for me, Raskin in the games that he's played in is exactly the type of midfielder that we have been lacking for so long. He is that deep-lying playmaker who can spread possession, but he's got so much else to his game. I think his tenacity, his pace, and his in that tenacity, he's got that aggression about him as well, and the challenge. I think that'll be really key. When you're talking about Celtic players, guys like Aaron Moy, he's very good in possession. He's got a very good pass. You need to close him down, but he does not have pace. I think Nico Raskin could cause him a lot of problems in stopping them from playing their game. So I think Raskin and Tillman start. Fantastic to have two brilliant young players back in our team, because I had real concerns about our age profile. So great to have them as options. But that third spot is the one that's up for grabs, and it's up for grabs not because there's nobody capable of filling it, but actually because there's so many good options, and that's just brilliant. We're not talking about Cantwell. Cantwell's a great player. I think he'll sit out the starting 11 in this game to allow the shape that was spoken about in terms of Tillman pressing on and Sakala for his pace, but Cantwell come off the bench. The three that's in question for me is Kamara, Jack and Lundstrom, and you could put a case forward for any of them. The Kamara one's interesting because on the school run, I walked to school with the guy that I go to games with at Ibrox, and he always talks about he likes a midfield balance. And whilst I like the aggression and physicality of Lundstrom, and whilst I like the leadership of Ryan Jack, and I think those two players have been so good for us in Old Firm games, the balance of Kamara and Raskin makes a lot of sense because both of them are great at holding the possession. Both of them are great at closing down. I think you could see Kamara and Raskin for that reason, but genuinely when that team sheet's announced, I'm not expecting any surprises, but I don't think there'll be any disappointments. I think our squad is very strong at the moment. That whatever squad's announced, I think we go there full of confidence and ready to see a team that's going to fight for everything to win this trophy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's something that we didn't have, a month or so ago, and it's certainly something that we didn't have in the meeting in September at Celtic Park.
Greg, I can see a comment from one of the fans, and he's absolutely bang on. The player that I was talking about was Diallo. We threw Diallo too soon.
Doesn't help when he's played out of position, and then he done the exact same to Tillman in the same place.
That was Gio, though. That was Gio all over.
Yeah.
I think that's the making of Tillman in particular. I think Michael Beale has really understood Tillman's qualities, and he's been able to get the best out of him. I don't think we're going to see anyone played out of position. I think it's one of the best things about this team right now and about Michael Beale. I spoke about it after the January transfer window. I think Michael Beale has a very clear vision of how his team are going to go out and play football. And I think he picks the players that really suit his system. But I also think what he's very good at as a tactician, and I'd say he's better than Ange, is I think he's very good at looking at the opposition and countering an opposition. And I think for that reason, that's why we might see Kamara partner Raskin.
Yeah, it's something that, as I say, I kind of wrangled with recently because I love the flying tackles and stuff like that the likes of Jack and especially Lundstrom can offer you. But, you mentioned it earlier about sort of getting up for the game and Morelos and Sakala and whatnot. I've got a feeling with the likes of Jack and Lundstrom, more so Lundstrom, that it can maybe go to his head a wee bit because we've seen Lundstrom sometimes make rash challenges, go in for tackles that he doesn't need to, maybe try too hard I don't really think Ryan Jack does that. I think Ryan Jack's quite controlled. I think Ryan Jack's a great player. I love him. But I just think his form, up until his slight problem a few weeks ago, I don't think it was great. But, if either one of the two start, if John Lynch or Ryan Jack's flying through a Celtic player 20 seconds into the game, I'm going to be jumping up and down, screaming and shouting. Yes,
that's the thing I was thinking. Seeing you're talking about kind of being fired up for it, one of the things about a Old Firm game is you do need to get the fans fired up and on side very early doors. And it was the Old Firm game where Andy Halliday put the challenge in at Ibrox very early doors. It set the tone straight away.
Yeah,
you do get that with Jack, and you get it with Lundstrom. You definitely do not get it from Kamara, but I think you can get it from the likes of Raskin.
Yeah,
but I'll say it again. I think the options are great. It's great to have those options. I think whether we have a lead that we're looking to protect, or we're behind and we're looking to get a goal, I think we've got great options from the bench. And we've seen it in the Scottish Cup semi-final last year. It was a sub. Arthur was a sub, wasn't he? He came off the bench.
Yep, Arthur Davis.
It was a sub that came on and made that difference. And I think it could be similar again. I think we're going to need the full squad to win this trophy on Sunday rather than just the start 11.
I think just mentioned him there, Stephen Davis, that other sub, might be a wee bit off topic because he's obviously not going to be playing, but I think he's someone that we could really be doing with on Sunday at some point in the game. He wouldn't have started, but the control that guy gives you in a game is unbelievable. A lot of Celtic fans have been talking about, Aaron Moy does something similar for them. Obviously, he's more forward thinking as well. But Stephen Davis, the control that he would give you in the midfield. I mean, if you can, game in January, for example, instead of bringing James Stans on, bring on Stephen Davis, and you've got that control there. I'm just laughing because I've actually got a wee bit of breaking news for you live on the podcast. Michael O'Halloran, if you remember him, he's signed for Rangers. He's just signed for Cove Rangers, apparently.
Really?
So he'll be joining. Well, no, Fraser will get the sack from Cove Rangers, didn't he? After making rude gestures towards the other mob supporters after a game a few years ago. But I thought that would make the viewers laugh. Hopefully there's a few people laughing in the comments with that one. Michael O'Halloran, I mean, obviously wasn't a very good player for Rangers the first time round. I don't know if he'll be any good for Rangers the second time around. He signed for Rangers twice. I mean, I don't think he imagined that like 7 or 8 years ago when he was playing for St Johnstone. I'm going to sign for Rangers not once but twice.
More to the point, that shows how far we've come. We were talking about having Michael O'Halloran in a Rangers team in the top flight. He was never good enough to play for Rangers. How they might have fallen, he's now at Cove Rangers, no offence to any Cove Rangers fans. But you're looking at our team right now and it's filled with quality. Quality that I genuinely believe if we go out and we play as best as we can win this trophy for a 28th time.
Well, that's certainly the plan. I've just seen a text from my dad who's laughing, saying Cove Rangers, ha 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 ha. So he'll be hearing that live on the podcast as well. I know we mentioned Tillman and obviously fitness. I know you're saying if Tillman's fit, he plays, but what I would like to know is how, if Tillman is a certain percentage fit, does he still play? Because one thing will be certain, certainly at the start of the game, we need all three midfield players to be on it. And look, I'm not going to be one to criticise Tillman's work rate. I think, ironically, people that do it are quite lazy. And obviously that is ironic because they're accusing Tillman of being lazy. I don't think he's lazy at all. In fact, he makes a lot of interceptions. He covers a lot of ground. But I just think that for this game, we need to match the energy. And I just have a bad feeling if he's not 100%, that maybe he's 70 or 80%. Normally that would be okay if it's a league game or whatever, against anyone but Celtic. But I just think that 10-20% drop off, that might, for me, prove to be crucial. And maybe that's why I would probably go with Cantwell instead if he's not 100%.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think it's going to be a very, very fast start to the game. I think it's going to be a high-tempo game. We've seen the game at Celtic Park when G was the manager. Ball boys very quick with the throw-ins and all that. So I think we're going to see Celtic try and play as quick as he possibly can. And you're right, we're going to need to be at it from that first whistle. And if he isn't fit enough, then he shouldn't play. He should not play if he's not fit enough. And maybe he can contribute from the bench in the second half if we do need to do something different. But I'll say it time and time again. I'd love him to play. I'd love him to be ready to play. And hopefully it's a bit of mind games for Michael Beale. Putting a bit of doubt into Andy's head about, is he fit? Is he not fit? Will he start? Will he not start? And therefore, Celtic are having to plan for different eventualities. Tillman offers a great deal. Do you know one of the things I was going to mention earlier on, and it kind of came into my head there about the mind games? There is that media noise just now from the comments from Beale and about Sakala, and somebody did put something in my head that I've not been able to get out of it, which is Celtic usually manage the narrative coming up to a big game like this around officials. One of the things, whilst a lot of supporters may not be happy about how open Michael Beale is in his press conferences and the comments made by the likes of Sakala, one of the things about it is that is dominating the headlines. So whilst that is dominating the headlines are not about officials and getting decisions right and putting pressure on those officials. And I just wonder if Michael Beale is playing a very clever game, whether it be about that element or whether it be about the likes of Tillman, where he is playing a wee bit of mind games right now. And I just wonder if he is doing something a bit clever right now. We won't know until Sunday, but I hope that's the case.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you make there about the media and stuff and the narrative. That's not actually something that I've thought of until you've said it there, Dougie. It is quite interesting because we have seen pundits come out the last few days. We've seen Neil Lennon today come out and say stuff about it, and nobody's really talking about it. Obviously we're talking about it, which might seem quite ironic, but it's not going to be back page or front page news tomorrow. Everyone's talking about Michael Beale's comments this week. Everyone's talking about Fashion Sakala's comments this week. And I think it's quite ironic from a Celtic supporter who, 10 days ago or so, were accusing Michael Beale of being soft and getting rattled by Chris Sutton. I think it's quite ironic that the most offended fan base in the world, all they've done for the last sort of 7 days or so since Michael Beale's made comments and Fashion Sakala's made comments, is cry in comment sections on Twitter.
We just need to do our talking on the pitch. I'm all for the noise coming from within our club, like Sakala, getting out there with the confidence. Let's show them no respect, but it needs to be backed up. And if we don't back it up in the pitch, we're going to look like fools. So let's hope that they're making those comments because they are confident and they don't let us down, because we know that feeling far too often just now as a Rangers supporter going to Hampden in the last decade. We've left displeased more times than not. Hopefully this is the turnaround where we do bring home that Scottish League Cup trophy. And interestingly, you're talking about the Rolls Royce of a player that Stephen Davis is. He is the other player that scored in the same game that Nikica Jelavic scored in our last appearance at Hampden. I am completely on the Stephen Davis train, and I think it's a sad ending to potentially his Rangers career if he doesn't return from his injury. But very definite, worthy Hall of Famer. Big Stephen Davis fan here.
No, he is. He's my favourite Rangers player, so that's how much I love him. In fairness to him about the injury there, I seen a wee feature on BBC Northern Ireland a few weeks ago where he was actually talking about getting back. And I tell you something, if he's fit, I don't care how old it, keep him, because see, to be honest, I've seen it with football players now. I know. But we've all got that sort of football manager or FIFA mentality where it's like as soon as a player hits 30, you're like that. Not get rid of him, he's too old. But nowadays you see guys like Ibrahimovic, Buffon, he's about 44, 45 now, still playing with Parma. He only left Juventus about 2 years ago when he would have been 42, 43. That's not me saying that Alan McGregor should get a new contract, by the way. But we see it, Giroud, Ibrahimovic, see it constantly now. Players playing now very late 30s, early 40s. So Stephen Davis is a guy who's kept himself fit throughout his whole career. He's not playing in a position like he used to where it's going to be as strenuous on his body. So as far as I'm concerned, if he can get himself back fit, I don't think money's going to be an issue. I don't think he's going to be the type of guy that he'll realise that he will need to take a pay cut. I would assume he's already taken one this year, but if Davis is fit next season, I'll gladly take him for another year.
he said himself in that interview, he's a player that's always really looked after himself, both in terms of his physical training, but also what he eats and all that good stuff. So, I'm with you. Obviously, when Gerrard was in charge and Beale was here before, we signed Jermaine Defoe, similar age, but he was signed because of his professionalism. He went on to be a player coach. When the injury came up, Michael Beale was interviewed and he mentioned that there would be a future at this club for Stephen Davis in some capacity. And I think what he was hinting at there is that Stephen Davis is a ready-made Rangers coach. I think he's settled in Glasgow, his family like it here. He's a Rangers supporter. I think there's a coaching role for some point in the future for the Rolls Royce for a player that Stephen Davis is. And if it's that we can get him in a player coach capacity next year, where hopefully as a footballer he is not needed in a lot of games, because I think we should be building our team around guys like Nico Raskin for next year. But there will always be certain games, at certain points in games, where you need different players. And with his leadership, his experience and his composure, if you're winning 1-0, getting the last 5 minutes of an Old Firm game at Hampden, you might want to throw on a Stephen Davis for that very reason.
No, absolutely. And may as well just ask you then, Dougie, before we finish up, what's the score going to be?
We're winning. I'm a very confident Rangers fan at the best of times. I'm going there full of confidence. I think we've got the better team. I think we're in great form. I think both teams are in great form, but I think we are looking very good at the moment. I think it could be more than one. I think it could be two. I think we'll concede, so I'm going to go 3-1 in 90 minutes as well.
I was going to go 3-1 as well. I've just got a feeling about Sunday, not just the win. I just think that we've got a big performance coming under this team. We had one at Tynecastle, obviously, a few weeks ago, but apart from that's been it really. So
I listened to one of the podcasts that Colin and Alex were doing, and Alex was brilliant, where he was basically saying that he's glad that we've came in to this game. Yes, we're still winning games, but other than Tynecastle, we've kind of scraped a lot of the games. We've not been at our best.
Yeah.
His point was, hopefully this is the game that we go on and replicate that Tynecastle performance, where we really raise our game and we go out there and blow them away. My dad literally was sitting listening to this podcast right now, shaking his head at the sheer thought of my confidence and saying that we could go and beat them by scoring 3 goals. But I'm all aboard, and I think I'm with Alex. I think it's good that we're coming into this game having not been at our best, because I think that'll be an extra motivation to the players to get a big performance. And I think we've got it in us. We just need to unleash it.
No, absolutely. I think that's a good wee message to end it on there, Dougie. We do have the team, we do have the players, we've got the guys here to go and do a job. It's just a case of going out and doing it. And I think that'll be the message from the manager as well. Just a wee reminder, guys, you can catch us again tomorrow on all your usual podcast providers to download tomorrow morning. And that's just about it. We'll be back on Sunday after the game, hopefully. Reviewing a positive result at Hampden, which would obviously be pretty good, be a pretty good way to end a good week so far. That'll be with Colin, David Fraser and Chris Jack. But really, guys, all that's left for me to do is wish you goodbye, good night. 8 is the magic number in Sunday for Rangers. 28 League Cups possibly, and possibly 118 major honours. That's what awaits us on Sunday. Hopefully it's a good one. We'll see you soon, guys. Cheerio, bye.